once he was actually paraphrasing Prahlad Maharaj, and so many times he would paraphrase Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, but in such a natural way that you would think he was just speaking as he was thinking. So at the time there were construction workers staying on Hare Krishna land, and in the distance he heard a small child crying. And later I found that he was paraphrasing Prahlad Maharaj, but he said that even in the presence of the mother, who gives all care to the child, still the child is crying. What is the reason? And then he gave the answer that one who is not cared for and protected by the Lord, even in the presence of the mother and the father, he can suffer. So he's saying that whatever we do on our own, we may or may not succeed. We depend on the care and protection of the Lord.
There was one man who had come, perhaps for the first time. He looked like a really strong lumberjack man. And he called out and challenged in a loud voice after the lecture, "How do you know that God eats?" So Prabhupada said very calmly, "God says I eat in the Bhagavad Gita. So I may be a fool number one, but who should I believe, God or a rascal like you?" And then he was, around the same time, he spoke about prasadam in the lectures, and he said, the father gives the boy his supper, and they're sitting at the table eating supper. And the boy says, "Here, Father, you take first, or you taste it." So the father doesn't need the food from the son. In fact, he provided it. But just the fact that the son offered it, he said, "Oh yes, it looks very nice, I'll take it." And just the fact that he offered it increases the loving relationship. So he was teaching us the mentality. Then he said, people criticize that you simply cut up some fruit and you call it prasadam. He said, yes, it is prasadam. Even an atheist can taste the difference between an unoffered chapati and an offered chapati.
When Prabhupada first went to Mayapur with his American disciples, they bought a piece of land in Mayapur, and so Prabhupada actually drove straight to Mayapur, our place. It was just a small hut that they built for Srila Prabhupada, without stopping at Gauriya Math, Chaitanya Math, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Samadhi. So some of his godbrothers commented that he didn't even stop at his spiritual master's Samadhi. So when Prabhupada heard about that, when Prabhupada was told that they were speaking like that, then Prabhupada commented, "Do they think that I am ever separated from my spiritual master even for a moment? My spiritual master is always with me." And that is how a disciple should always be conscious of his spiritual master. Like spiritual master is none other than the super soul. The spiritual master is the super soul, or actually even more than the super soul. The yogis, when they attain perfection, they see the super soul in the heart. A devotee, when he attains perfection, he sees his spiritual master in the heart. So pure devotion means to see his spiritual master in his heart all the time. So more we become Krishna conscious, more we make spiritual advancement, the more we will see Srila Prabhupada in our hearts. And we are seeing, like, actually that's the benefit of being in ISKCON. Like everywhere we see Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada's temples, Prabhupada's deities, Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada's devotees, everything is Srila Prabhupada. And that's what is actually not only protecting us from the onslaughts of Maya, but automatically pushing us towards our ultimate destination, Krishna's lotus feet.
With a businessman, he would give a business example. Like with Mr. Mota, who was a businessman, he said that according to Chanakya Pandit, at the time of death, even if we're willing to spend crores of rupees, we cannot get one moment more to live. So he was saying that that means that every moment is worth crores of rupees. And the time that is spent in Krishna consciousness is profit. And the time that is not spent in Krishna consciousness is loss. So he said, you make your balance sheet and you see the profit and the loss, and you use all your time in Krishna consciousness.
So after the class, one boy stood up and asked, well, isn't it all like a dream? And when you wake up from the dream, you see that there's really nothing there from the dream. So don't we lose our individuality and just kind of merge? That was the big philosophy of the time, merging. So Prabhupada said, well, you're not the person in the dream, but it doesn't mean you're not a person. You're somebody who had the dream. And although you were thinking that you were somebody else in the dream, when you wake up, you realize who you are. So that's how Krishna consciousness is.
So every morning, Dr. Patel would come to Juhu and take Srila Prabhupada in his car to Juhu Beach in the bad weather. And in the good weather, he would just walk with Srila Prabhupada to Juhu Beach. But Dr. Patel was sort of a Mayavadi. At least sometimes Srila Prabhupada would call him a Mayavadi, although he would deny it and say that he was a Vaishnava. So one morning, Srila Prabhupada criticized some famous Mayavadi sannyasi of India. And Dr. Patel really got upset. He really felt offended. And ultimately he left. So later, the devotees were very upset with Dr. Patel because he was always arguing with Srila Prabhupada. And when Srila Prabhupada, to his mind, insulted one of his gurus, Dr. Patel really argued with Srila Prabhupada. He actually chastised Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada argued back. I'm not saying, Krishna is saying. But the devotees were very upset. And so later, Tamal Krishna Goswami asked Srila Prabhupada that, why do you spend so much time with him? And Srila Prabhupada said, we have to engage everyone. But, it was very hard to understand Dr. Patel. Was he a Mayavadi? Was he a Vaishnava? And Srila Prabhupada told a story that once there was a man who spoke many languages, and nobody could figure out what his original language was. And everyone in the village wanted to know. They wanted to know who they were dealing with. What is his mother tongue? Where does he come from? But whatever language you would speak to him, he would respond perfectly and immediately in the same language. So, how to find out? Then one man said, I will find out. So once, when the other person wasn't looking, he came from behind, gave him a slap. And immediately he started cursing in his original language. So Srila Prabhupada said that Dr. Patel was like him, that whatever language you spoke to Dr. Patel, he would respond in the same language. But when we hit on the sensitive point, then his real language, then he spoke in his real language.